Good morning. Thanks. As the Colonel said, I am branch chief for the Environmental Planning Branch in the Rock Island District, and I have had the pleasure to serve on participate in many of the ecosystem restoration programs and projects along the Illinois River. And so I am happy to be here as the panel chair today. We're going to have the panel members introduce themselves by some short videos that they produced, so we'll roll that now.
Hello, my name is Gretchen Benjamin. I work for the Nature Conservancy as a large river specialist. Throughout my career, I've worked with the Rock Island District, and through my work on the Upper Mississippi River, I've worked on the Illinois River on both river restoration work and also dredging and disposal issues.
Hello, I'm Lauren Wobig, Director of the Office of Water Resources in the Department of Natural Resources. The Office of Water Resources is engaged in navigation, flood damage reduction, flood hazard mitigation, and regulation on the Illinois, many times in partnership with the Rock Island District, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
Hello everyone, my name is Marshall Plumley. I am with the Rock Island District, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I currently serve as the Regional Program Manager for the Upper Mississippi River Restoration Program, which includes the Illinois Waterway. I've been involved in river restoration issues for going on 25 years, late 1990s. And the UMRR program over the last 35 years or so has accomplished a good deal of restoration as well as scientific monitoring and research on the Illinois River. I've been with the Rock Island District about 20 years, and I've been the program manager here for the UMRR for the last 3.
Hey, good morning.
All right,
this is Scott Whitney.
Go ahead, Scott.
Scott Whitney, I'm the Chief of Project Management for Rock Island District. I've been with Rock Island now for going on 22 years. Prior to coming here, I worked on the Illinois Waterway as a research scientist investigating the zebra mussel invasion of that river. And so got to know it very intimately, walked a lot of miles of that river on the river bottom with my dive team. But coming to the Corps, being able to help solve some of the problems from ecosystem restoration to flood risk management and navigation has truly been a privilege, and to work with many of the exciting and very motivated sponsors out there, as well as our partners in the state and federal government. So it's a pleasure to be here today, and apologize, Andy got called off to Brandon Road for an emergency visit from Assistant Secretary of Civil Works team that wanted to take a first-hand view of it. So we make ourselves available for those type of things, and hoping to move forward with that project here this year. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Scott. To start on a positive note, I wanted to ask the panel, what are some of the restoration efforts on the Illinois River that you're most excited about? And we can start with, let's start with Marshall.
Thanks, Jody. Good morning, everyone. I think couple of things that jump out at me. The Upper Mississippi River Restoration Program has been in place for almost 35 years, and in that time we've restored, both on the Mississippi and the Illinois River, about 106,000 acres that we've been able to restore. About 25,000 of those acres are on the Illinois River. And so we've made a major investment as a program, as a partnership with the state of Illinois in restoring a number of areas up and down the Illinois Waterway. And I think that that partnership continues. Of course, with every project we have challenges. We also have a great deal of success. And what I'm most excited about right now is the new energy and the new interest that both the Corps and our partners, in particular the state of Illinois, have in kind of reinvigorating efforts on the Illinois River related to restoration under the UMRR program. The other thing I'm very excited about is, in addition to those restoration efforts, what's great about UMRR is we have made a significant investment in science and monitoring to help inform the decisions that we make. And we do that in partnership with the state of Illinois through our field station at Havana, and that gives us access to expertise within the state, like I said, to gather information and inform the restoration efforts that we have ongoing and the ones that we are planning over the next 10 years or so. Thank you.
All right, we'll go to Gretchen next and then Lauren.
Good morning. I would definitely echo what Marshall just said about the UMRR program. One of my first jobs on the river was doing water quality back in 1988 with the long-term resource monitoring program. So I've been following it since day one, and there has been incredible work done over the years, and we just keep seeing it get better and better with the incredible science associated with that program. But I am also extremely interested in seeing the Navigation Ecosystem Sustainability Program move forward. It holds a whole different level of promise that it's an integrated program that will work on navigation, but it's also going to take ecosystem restoration up to the next level. And I'm happy to see that it got funded last year, and I hope to see it go to a construction new start here very soon so we can really see the promise of that particular program come forward. And I'll finally just give a huge nod out to the Illinois chapter of the Nature Conservancy for all the incredible work they've done on projects like Emaquan and Spunky Bottoms and collaborating with partners on the Illinois River. So a lot of those things really have me excited these days.
Thanks, Gretchen. Lauren, what are you most excited about with restoration on the Illinois?
Resources is excited about on several fronts. Number one, we've seen an improvement in water quality on the Illinois, and so that's resulted in an increase in the biodiversity of the creatures that call that home. Mussels, for example, are seeing expanded growth and movement across Illinois. Also excited about from the navigation industry and the container on barge kind of developments that are occurring and the commerce that we can see and the collaboration of ports together on the Illinois River that really will create some amazing economic opportunities for the Midwest and a large portion of the nation. Excited about a lot of the flood mitigation efforts that have occurred up and down the river so that we're able to pass much larger flood events these days without making the headline evening news across the nation. So many fronts that are happening there. We've had success with dam removals and so forth, as we'll get into here in a moment. But a lot of that, again, foreshadowing what's to come. But there's a lot of exciting improvements and benefits we're seeing on the Illinois River. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. What are you excited about with restoration?
Well, having a very personal connection with the Illinois Waterway and its history, I think the scientific knowledge and the basis of understanding what's happened on the Illinois Waterway over the last 120-some years since some major changes were made to connect it to the Great Lakes. We've seen through that history largely the decimation of a river system that was once one of the most productive in the world, recognized with the fish markets that shipped fish to the world. And we've seen through the partnerships and the leveraging of that knowledge and that science to come up with innovative ways to partner and work together to restore the floodplain, restore the functionality of the river. And as Lauren said, the mussels are kind of the canaries in the gold mines. And I was privileged to be on the leading edge of studying that mussel population as it faced yet another assault from the exotic zebra mussels. And they've withstood that, and the natural variation of that river did not favor the zebra mussels the way we thought it would. But again, the studies we did in the 90s discovered for the first time mussels above the Hennepin Bend. They were largely hadn't found a live mussel up there since about the 1910, 1911 period. So our studies in the 90s was the first time we were finding live mussels. So showing that the river with the Clean Water Act and some of the legislation and the efforts of the states regulations, we've seen that river given room to rebound and recover. And I think the science that we're bringing today, the partnerships with the Nature Conservancy, really exploring new and innovative ways to work with the river. And as we all acknowledge, this is a working river and a river that works. And I think that's a key message that the state and federal agencies have carried for years. And I'm really excited. The 519 program, as has been mentioned, offers a lot of great opportunities to work beyond just the main stem into some of the tributaries, the feeder streams and things like that are part of that network of ecological integrity that this river system has and has been known for. So I'm very excited, again, the partnership, the collaboration, the knowledge that we were able to bring to bear on solving some of these problems.
Thanks a lot, Scott. As many of you mentioned, we've been a lot of thinking about the Illinois River, and in the early 2000s, we had a vision for restoration on the Illinois that we called Illinois 2020. I want to kick this to Lauren and to share with us what it is that we have accomplished, and have we accomplished that vision that we had for 2020? We need to unmute you, Lauren.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Yes, we have in many ways. We are certainly a lot smarter than we were when we first started. We've learned a whole lot more about sediment and its beneficial uses, and of course have used some of that to create islands in the Illinois River and improved habitat in that manner. Also, we've done a lot of work on dam removal since we first started, and we've removed dams on a lot of the tributaries to the Illinois main stem, particularly Blackberry Creek Dam, in the Yorkville area. As we go up into the Chicago area, we've removed Hoffman Dam on the Des Plaines. Actually, several dams on the Des Plaines have been removed, and of course, we continue to see then increased fisheries improvements as a result of that. On the Fox River, we've moved or improved several dams there. Yorkville with improvements, North Aurora for removal. We continue to evaluate dam removal at Geneva and at Montgomery and Batavia. We're also coming downstate, looking at the Color Plant Dam on the Sangamon River and another dam very adjacent to that dam. We're looking at very soon removing the Buzzy Unisem Dam on the Vermilion River very near the confluence of the Illinois. So there has been a lot of activity from the DNR's perspective. Our heaviest focus, I guess, has been probably on the dam removal portion of that to provide fish connectivity. And as we've been able to accomplish that, we certainly have seen the benefits and the positive results from those efforts.
Thanks, Lauren. Is there, Scott or Marshall, is there anything you wanted to add about accomplishments?
Yeah, I would just maybe echo things that Lauren mentioned. One way that I view accomplishments is, have we been able as a partnership to be flexible and adapt to changing circumstances? A couple of those projects that Lauren mentioned, like Blackberry Dam and some of the Illinois River Basin restoration projects, because of funding fluctuations at the federal level, weren't able to be completed necessarily under the program that they started out with, but the state, with some of their capabilities, were able to come on board and complete those projects independently. So we took advantage of opportunities that, even though we had, like I said, fluctuations in funding that might have stopped a project for a time, because we maintained those relationships and those partnerships, they were able to get completed, and we were able to look at other avenues for completing those efforts. So I think that to me, that speaks to the partnership and the value of the relationship that we have. Thank you.
Jody, I would just add that the Illinois River has always been sort of a proving ground for some really novel and breakthrough in the science. And one of those is the flood pulse concept that Richard Sparks, who I worked with in the 90s, was one of the founders of. really introduce the vitality of a river system as it connects with its floodplain. The Illinois Waterway has seen tremendous isolation from its floodplain, and now one of the ecological integrity aspects and the resilience we're trying to rebuild into that system is reconnecting that floodplain, reestablishing side channels and other areas that are critical for that habitat. So all of the projects and things, it's like a giant jigsaw puzzle. How do you put some of these pieces back in place, put them in place in the right areas and at the right timing to enhance? And all of that is another proving ground is the Illinois Waterway is kind of the ground floor for the invasion of the Asian carp and possibly a stepping stone to the Great Lakes. So we have opportunities here that really don't exist elsewhere to the degree they do here, to learn, to try and do some innovative things. So in the Brandon Road project, again, rarely have we had an opportunity to stop or stall out an invasion of an exotic like we're seeing with these Asian carp. So the Corps is very, very excited to be working with Illinois and Michigan and the other Great Lakes states to hopefully put a stop log in that and slow that spread and diminish that opportunity for those species to invade and damage other ecosystems. So like I said, there's a great history here. There's a great people and a great willingness to do good things for the ecosystem, for the health and vitality of the citizens that live in and along this river as well. So thank you.
Thanks. Tailing off of that with the invasive species, looking to Lauren as what are we doing on the Illinois to address invasive species, and also looking to have Scott follow up on that as well.
Sure. Well, since we're in football season, I'm going to use a football analogy, right? And so we have both a defense and an offense. On the defensive side, we have a very strong barrier system operated by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in Romeoville, really set to prevent invasive species from either direction coming or going into the Great Lakes. That's operated quite successfully for quite a while now. The Brandon Road project that Scott has mentioned, to me, is adding another very qualified linebacker to our defense to further strengthen that team to do that as a system and stopping the invasion of Asian carp. On the offensive side of our football team here, we do have the removal efforts and the monitoring efforts that are underway, and Illinois, in partnership with U.S. Fish and Wildlife and many other agencies, have been quite successful in the commercial removal of Asian carp, going on the offense and really driving that population front and those densities downstream. And in fact, even this year and in late last year, we moved into the Peoria pool, which is really where we have a lot of the mating of the fish and the smaller fish occurring there. As you get upstream, the populations get smaller and smaller due to those offensive measures. Also, quite happy to report that there has been a growing trend for the commercial market for that, not to try and encourage Asian carp, but so much to add another player to the offensive team that we can use to encourage the commercial fishing that does not have to be subsidized of these invasive species, and really go forward to find ways to create that market and use them from fertilizer to showing up on your plate. So again, there's both an offensive and a defensive happening for the control of these invasive species, and we are seeing success in the numbers of fish and keeping them out of the Great Lakes. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Scott, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Sure. Just to give a few more details about the Clay Matthews position here that the Brandon Road project presents. It's a layered system, I think, as Lauren highlighted. It must include a lot of both non-structural and structural measures to be successful. Continue to enhance and develop, as Lauren said, some of the overfishing, some of the market development, decreases some of that pressure and diminishes the amount of fish that are actually coming up and beating on these barriers trying to get through. The Chief's report for the Brandon Road project was signed in May of 2019. Since that time, we've been working with Illinois as the non-federal sponsor to identify sort of the strategy, the design plan, and get a design agreement signed with them in recognition of this is no small measure by any means. This is going to take a tremendous amount of effort and cost and money from both the federal and state. Ultimately, the taxpayers are going to be very interested in the work that we're doing and hopefully the effectiveness. Basically, the structural side of it includes a lot of innovations that have largely not been tried in a system of this size. They've been tried in different locations. We're presently field testing some of these right now on various locks and dams in the Ohio and the Mississippi and as far up in the Fox River in Wisconsin, just to test out and see the efficacy and some of the concerns we need from a design standpoint to make these things real. Right now, we have less than 5% design on the entire project. So getting into design is going to help us understand and develop these things, these technologies, much more effectively, find cost savings potentially, find other things that can enhance their performance. But simply put, the structural plan includes an acoustic fish deterrent. The Asian carp, especially the silver carp, respond very negatively to noise in the water. So enhancing, creating a barrier of noise to turn them around and move them the other direction. A bubble curtain. We're experimenting and we're testing this in a variety of different formats right now, trying to dislodge early life stages or fish that are trapped in between barges and move them out and flush them down away from the lock so they don't get carried through with the barges. A lot of this is going to be made possible with a fairly ambitious engineered channel with the concrete floors, concrete sides, in which we can apply a layered system of these technologies, not allowing any corners or rocks in places where they can skip and jump through the barriers. So the engineered channel is kind of foundation piece by which many of these technologies will be implemented. An electrical barrier is already in place at Romeoville. But we believe, in certain circumstances, high water events, there is the possibility for fish to if they get above Brandon Road, to get in and around that electrical barrier. Thus far, it's been pretty effective in combination with the other Illinois DNR activities that were mentioned. But putting an electrical barrier at the forefront of that lock to prevent them, from getting in the lock and being carried through is another important point. And lastly, one of the things that we're looking at is a flushing lock, which allow us to flush the entire volume of that water downriver. So any fish, any organisms that are in there are not going to be, processed through that lock when the barges move through. So it's a combination of these multi-layers in combination with other non-structural measures, as Lauren mentioned, that we hope is going to be successful in limiting or actually prohibiting the movement of these carp into the Great Lakes. I mentioned the cost. The estimated cost of this right now with contingencies are upwards of 60% right now because of the limited design we have. We're looking at about an $831 million project as it stands for what we know now. But we're very interested with the state of Illinois. The governor's office has made it clear that's a bill and as a cost share sponsor that they're very concerned about and looking for partnerships with the other Great Lakes states to help provide some funding sources here, but also the design process. We have great faith in our engineering teams and the ability to drive that cost down, drive those contingencies down, find innovative and cost-effective ways to deliver this program faster and cheaper than what the preliminary estimates are looking at. So with that, I'll stop there. Thank you, Jody.
Anything else to add, Lauren? Oh, I think you're unmuted. Get you unmuted. Still not hearing you. Sam, there we go.
I think Scott did a good job adding in some additional details, so I think we're good for now, Jody. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot. Interesting stuff on those invasives. Moving over to Gretchen, what do you think? You work with a non-governmental organization. What do you think the role is of non-governmental organizations like yours in restoring the Illinois River?
Well, Jody, I think there's clearly two spaces that we live within and can help in this process. One of them is just the fact that we can be a partner in this process, that we oftentimes have real estate that needs to be restored, and we can work with the Corps on doing that sort of restoration work, whether it's reconnection, restoration, that sort of thing. So we definitely have a role there. There are some issues associated with that, and I'll talk about that later on, but that's a clear role for the Nature Conservancy in particular. But I think, one of the other ways that the Nature Conservancy and other NGOs have been involved with the restoration work over the years is being a champion for the programs from a federal or a state level, trying to make sure that the funding is available, trying to work on policy issues that could get in the way of us doing the best possible restoration out there. So working with, legislative staff and that to get legislation that works for us to do this sort of work and to help us do it the most effective and efficient way possible. So I really think that those two areas are where we can really provide some support to this work.
Thanks, Gretchen. From the state or federal perspective, what do you all see as the role of NGOs?
This is Scott, and I'd say, Gretchen, I think as always, Nature Conservancy is very modest in what they do and the mobilization of the public interests that they represent and private citizens who invest in these river systems and leverage that with the scientists at Nature Conservancy and other NGOs bring to the table. Gretchen said, one of the key things they can have a direct working relationship with landowners, and they've proven exceptionally effective in that, especially from floodplain restoration. For the NEST program that we mentioned earlier, we're looking at 30,000 acres of restoration with that program, and I see NGOs like the Nature Conservancy and others, as well as the states, being a key player in the ability to secure those properties from willing sellers and implement some of the restoration plans in place. So, like I said, what I've seen the Nature Conservancy, they learn by doing. They're not just out there professing certain ideals and things. They're actually putting to the test and putting their dollars in action, as we've seen with the Spunky Bottoms project and the Emaquan project, and been very privileged to work closely with Mike Reiter and Doug Blodgett and Gretchen through the years, and just continue to be impressed by the magnification that they bring to the federal and state programs by bringing attention and resources to the table.
Thanks, Scott. Dan, can you make sure Lauren's unmuted? Thanks.
I'm beginning to get the message now, right? I was saying that they become the valuable partners that you need to work with. They have resources often that states may not have, and access into other foundation dollars and so forth that they can use to do a lot of additional research and look into issues. And so then they become kind of like the smart girl that you always wanted to sit next to in class, because they have some of the answers to a lot of difficult questions. So thank you.
I like that analogy. All right. I think Gretchen kind of brought up some of her ways, but what can we do to better collaborate to achieve restoration, working together with state, federal, and NGOs?
Well, Jody, there has been one problem that's really hampered our ability to work on these projects over the years. It's the project partnership agreement that has been very difficult for our organization to sign with the Corps of Engineers, and we have worked since 2014 on WRDA each and every 2-year cycle on trying to get the issues associated with that PPA figured out. We still don't have the answers for indemnification and also for O&M in perpetuity. And although it seems like we could ignore those things and still go ahead and sign these contracts, we have incredible assets within the Nature Conservancy, and that does not make our attorneys comfortable signing something like that. So it's one of those issues that we have gone after multiple times, and it has hampered us at Emaquan doing projects, and that's funky. And I've seen it hamper projects up in Minnesota with the UMRR program. So it's one of those things that if we're going to really truly be successful at partnering with the states and the NGOs on some of these projects, we're going to have to find a better answer.
Thanks. Lauren, do you have any thoughts on that, on what we can do to better collaborate to achieve restoration?
I would just add an exclamation point, I guess, to Gretchen's comments, in that while I feel that we have made great strides in improving our collaboration and our communication with our stakeholders and other federal agencies, we still end up being hindered by those provisions of a project partnership agreement, related to having to do O&M in perpetuity as opposed to defining a project life for an action based on the kind of project that you're doing. So, again, I just add an exclamation point to Gretchen's comments. Thank you.
Thanks. Scott or Marshall, do you have any thoughts on what we can do to better collaborate besides working on those items that Lauren and Gretchen identified?
I can just, in relation to the Upper Miss Restoration Program, we've recognized the partnership, the 5-state partnership, and the other federal agencies have recognized the valuable contributions that the NGO community can make, not just in bringing lands to the table, projects to the table, but I think, we all get our blinders on when we're looking at projects, and I think folks at the Nature Conservancy and other NGOs who are invited to participate in those activities, even if they don't have they're not a project sponsor, bring a perspective that adds value to those projects and ultimately makes the projects better. And I think the more that we can encourage that type of collaboration and add more seats to the table when it comes to projects, we're going to get a better product at the end of the day as a result.
The only item I would add, Jody, is that of innovation and adaptive management, which have been centerpieces to the UMR program. Many of these partnerships kind of been the traditional partnerships that we've seen. So as Lauren and Gretchen mentioned, and many of the stakeholders in the region mentioned, we've got to find innovative ways within our legislative boundaries, within our program authorities, to embrace this and find solutions that may not provide the 100%, but maybe 65 or 80%, and the willingness to move into adaptive management to learn to make better projects through time, not lock into a perpetuity situation, because we're going to be more hesitant to take some of the risks we need to take on the system to learn from that, adapt, and move forward with solutions that really work. So we hear loud and clear, and we are driving that exclamation point, as Lauren said, as well, to know that opens up further latitude with our authorities and working relationships with sponsors, which I think is really what's necessary here to embrace the complex array of ecological challenges and other things that we face as river managers and scientists.
Thanks. Another item we had, Lauren, you had mentioned the update to the Illinois State Water Plan. How will the Illinois River benefit from updating this plan?
Well, thank you for asking that question. Really, the State Water Plan gives us opportunity is the best way to probably put that in a word. So we're really looking to update this water plan to focus on a 5-year window of improvements that can be made. And I guess I would share that the process of updating the plan is probably as important as the plan itself. And so the plan is that collection or gives us the opportunity again for the state agencies that deal with water, from water quality to recreation to navigation to flood control, to come together and speak kind of with one voice on here's what the issues are and here's where we need to go to help resolve those issues. And so currently the update for the state water plan includes 13 different topic areas, again, as I mentioned, from water quality to climate change to recreation. And so each state agency has been assigned kind of a leadership role depending on their expertise on those issues, and then asked to help define what issues exist under navigation or under water quality, and then work with stakeholders and others to really define what challenges are there and what actions need to occur to try and address that moving forward in the next 5 years. And really this becomes a vehicle to go to the governor and the General Assembly and say, look, all of your water-related agencies have come together and reached out to stakeholders and other interested parties to identify these issues and address it, and here's what we're recommending for a plan moving forward. And so that process, though, as I mentioned, of bringing those stakeholders together to address those issues becomes as important because it really, again, facilitates that communication and collaboration that we've been talking about already this morning to try and address some of those challenges. I'll put in a quick plug, and so even though we were delayed by COVID-19 by a few months here, we are moving forward with a virtual outreach here on December 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, where the intent is really to share each of those 13 issues that were, refined. We started with over 100 issues and kind of consolidated those down to 13 immediate issues, and so we're going to share that with the public and interested stakeholders and to see if those are the right 13 and to what kind of subsets should be included under those issues. And of course, each of those 13 issues I mentioned certainly apply on the Illinois River and will definitely have an impact on the Illinois River as we see it in the next 5 years going forward. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Oh, that's exciting. Kind of switching over a little bit more to resilience of the river that we have in our headline for our session. Looking to Gretchen to get your views on whether we can recover a more resilient Illinois River, and looking for comments from Scott or Marshall on those views as well.
All right, Jody. Well, I think what Lauren was just talking about, in terms of water quality, that's certainly a huge issue for the Illinois River. But another really big issue is the altered hydrology in the system. When we're talking about the ecosystem of the Illinois River and trying to reset things so that it is a more resilient river, perhaps leaning back towards that river that was once a commercial fishery mecca because it was such a productive system. We have to start thinking about the way the system is today, the way it's managed, and how can we create the right water levels and management of that system considering the altered hydrology we have out there today. And I think likely what we need to do in the next probably 20 to 30 years is to start thinking about putting together strands of pearls, if you will, where we have multiple areas that might look something like an Emaquan, where we actually have the river floodplain managed for restoration all the way down the system so that as migratory birds come down, there is a place for them to go. There's also places for fish to spawn in the right conditions. but we're probably going to have to manage that water within those systems because of the current way the water levels can fluctuate on a daily or a weekly basis, and certainly don't mirror what our seasonal variability in that river would be. So, you know, I think if we think about how can we create multiple areas like that down the river so that we have habitat that might sort of replicate what was there historically, but in the managed system that we have today. And my thoughts and my goals along those lines would be we would put those systems in place, and hopefully over time we would have better management of our river and our altered system and get it a little bit closer to a natural system, so eventually maybe we could connect those floodplain systems to the river itself. That would be the ultimate goal, and that would be a much more resilient system than we have out there today. And I see a program like NEST being a really good catapult to get us to those places where we can start to look at that floodplain and whether it's some sort of small connection or managed connection to the Illinois River. A program like NEST really will provide the funding and the coordination to get that kind of work done. So I see that as a very important next step for being able to do something like that.
Thanks. I like that vision of having those isolated areas to provide habitat now with the hope that in the future we can reconnect. Marshall or Scott, have any thoughts on that? Resilience of the Illinois River?
Yeah, I guess I would change it from a question to a statement that we have to recover the resilience of the Illinois River. As was mentioned earlier, this is a nationally significant navigation resource. It's a nationally significant ecological resource, and in some cases, in some aspects, a globally significant resource. And so if we choose not to make those investments, if we choose not to set bold goals for ourselves as a partnership, we potentially lose some of those things that make the Illinois River unique nationally and unique globally. So I think we have to, my opinion is we have to look in that direction. Can we? Yeah, absolutely. We have, as I mentioned earlier and has been alluded to, one of the things that makes UMRR unique is almost 35 years of data collection, which obviously includes the Illinois Waterway and the science that's been invested, the work that's been invested in science and monitoring. I would argue that there's no other river in the world that has the amount of data and the amount of analysis that informs restoration and management activities that we do here on the Illinois and in the upper Mississippi River system. And so that gives us a unique advantage. It gives us insight into the condition of the river and how it's reacting to changes on the landscape, as well as from climate and those sorts of things. So we have the information and the science to guide us. We have the expertise. Just looking at the folks in the virtual room here and the folks who work on these projects in partnership, we have the science and the expertise to do this, to affect change along the river. I think one last thing that I think is pretty critical, you know, I'm part of a program that is focused on the main stem. I think to achieve resiliency, that watershed approach is really critical because there's only so many things that we can achieve under a UMRR or a NEST program on the main stem. There has to be that watershed approach that helps us address some of those ecological drivers that are coming in from the watershed. And so that's really where the value of the partnership represented here can help move those types of things forward. Thank you.
I know we're running short on time, but I'll just add real quickly that the Corps under General Bostic and under President Obama, you know, enacted the Executive Order 13653, preparing the U.S. for the impacts of climate change. I was part of the team that was put together to develop a roadmap. So as Lauren and Marshall said, I mean, there's plenty of examples where we've been applying it and developing it into our projects. But what General Bostic asked us to do is really develop a roadmap that we as an agency and working with the communities that want to achieve resilience, how to define it, what are some of the tools in the toolbox, what are some of the technological things that we can bring to bear. So giving it more form and function rather than just another buzzword that's kicked around. So I think the Corps as a whole has embraced that. We've established a clear roadmap and definition to that. This is the document I'm referring to, and it's available on the web. It was published in about 2016, and the Upper Miss Basin is embracing this, incorporating this into our watershed approach and into our programs like the NESP and other things. So just want a brief shout out for that. It is something that's been very invaluable, giving form and function to the concept and helping people understand and implement it more effectively.
Thanks, Scott. We have 5 minutes left, so in this final question for folks, if you can share with us what is next for your agency or for your organization or the program that you work on for the Illinois River in kind of more of a short-term future. What do you have going on? And we will start with Marshall, then we'll go to Lauren, Gretchen, and Scott.
Sure, a couple of things for Upper Mississippi River restoration. First, I just want to mention we're getting ready to complete our third status and trends report for the Upper Mississippi River system, which includes the Illinois Waterway. That document takes all that monitoring and data collection and science work that we've been doing now for over 3 decades and gives us a report card of where we're at and where we're headed. Helps us understand where our restoration work is having an effect and where we still need to do work in the future. So I think that's it's draft right now. We expect to have that out in the first half of 2021, and that's a great resource not just for the program but for all of our partners to tap into. It's got some great information. Second, we have a habitat restoration project at Rice Lake that we've had some challenges with in terms of flooding and some damages to some infrastructure, and so we're committed to working with the state and the DNR to get that project up and operating successfully. And then finally, the program, every 6 years we have to kind of check in with Congress, and we provide a report to Congress on what we're doing as a partnership and what the program's doing. And that isn't just a core document. That's a reflection of the partnership, and of course the state of Illinois is part of that 5-state partnership, and so we look forward to working with Illinois on crafting that document and that message, and I think it's a great opportunity for Illinois to highlight some of the things that are important to them related to the Illinois River and the UMRR program. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll have, I don't remember what I said before, but we'll have Lauren go and then Gretchen.
Well, great. Thank you, Jody. Yeah, really going forward, I think we want to continue to strive to be a strong and valuable partner in a lot of these efforts going on. Obviously, encouraging NESP and the activities occurring there, from navigation benefits that we're looking forward to, the ecosystem improvements. There we, as I mentioned earlier, are slated to continue to move forward with several dam removals, again improving connectivity and those kind of benefits that come with dam removal in the Illinois Waterway system. Also, as I mentioned before, with the carp, and while we as a nation, we've done a wonderful job of being able to move a kernel of corn from Champaign County to China, we need to continue to work to create those same kind of capabilities for the fisheries side of things and able to enhance that market and help that market and the economy grow in that fashion. So that will be a big push there. We're excited to hear that we have gotten funding, that the Corps has gotten funding, and that we're moving ahead with some new HEC-RAS modeling on the Illinois River, and so that again opens up opportunities that we can explore not only from a flood risk reduction standpoint, but also exploring opportunities that we might have from improving the ecosystem as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Gretchen, what does the Nature Conservancy have going on next for the Illinois?
Well, we're really focused on bringing floodplain restoration and management to scale on the Illinois River, so that we can really affect things on a system level. So first of all, we have this incredible science learning that's going on the Emaquan, and we'll continue to do that and learn more from that and figure out what are the right ideas to export to other areas. We're working on some managed connections at Spunky because the hydrology in the system just isn't allowing us to manage that system as it's currently. It's blown out right now, and we need to do something to get that fixed and fairly soon. So we'll be working on that. But, you know, really one of our big pushes right now is to look for additional areas where we can work, where we can work with landowners and partners to find additional areas to scale up this work. And so we've got those 3 areas going on right now.
Excellent. And following up with you, Scott, what have you got going on the programs that you're involved with?
So one of the longest standing programs that's been out there has yet to be realized is the NEST program, stands for Navigation Ecosystem Sustainability Program. That was the buzzword when we named that program back in the late 2000s. We were to name it today, we'd probably name it NERP for resilience instead of sustainability, because that seems to be the latest buzz. But what it really recognizes, and I see Marty Heddle and others on there, you know, this is a working river and has provided tremendous access to the world markets for this region of farming and heavy ag. 60% of the grains grown in this region, you know, move on this river. So, you know, it is the only river system in the country that is designated by Congress as both a nationally significant ecosystem and a nationally significant navigation system. So the NEST program recognizes that, marries the two in such a way that allows us to work innovatively to improve and modernize the navigation system, to more efficiently deliver that to the world market, be more competitive. That's a tremendous amount of our exports that this country relies on to ensure our safety and security. The same is true on our ecosystem. The safety and security of our populations depend on clean water and opportunities for recreation, which this river system provides. So I think you look at the history, you know, from ancient times and the development and settlement of these areas by the ancient civilizations, and even today, this river is a lifeblood to our economy. It's a lifeblood to our sustainability as a species, as a human population. So I think in not losing sight of that, but recognizing the art of compromise, the art of communication, the art of working together to solve these problems. And I'll just end on one of the last and probably most important points is forums like this and others, you know, helping educate and inform our legislative entities, our public, because only through them do we get the leveraging, the resources needed to apply ourselves and the science to the system and solving some of these problems for our current and future generations. So I think that's a very important point, that communication, information, exchange, and I think NGOs and others provide a valuable opportunity to help bring this river to the forefront of some of those political forums. So I'll end with that and thank everybody for their time and involvement here today.
Yeah, and thanks to Scott and Lauren and Gretchen and Marshall today. I think we've heard a lot of good information about the environmental condition and future of the river, about stuff that we've accomplished in the recent past, also some of the challenges that we're looking at today, as well as looking to the future. So thanks a lot. I will turn it back over to you, Colonel Stattinger. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Jody. And yeah, I really want to echo your thanks for our panel members, especially the external partners, Gretchen and Lauren. Great to see you again, as always. And Scott and Marshall from my team, thanks. All of you made some really great, insightful comments, and I really appreciate it. And we're going to go ahead and transition to our second panel now.